Yo, what is up everybody? Welcome to a different type of what if. Today we are exploring the scenario of what if the Doctor was a part of the MCU. Now, if you don't know, Doctor Who is a British sci-fi show about an alien travelling throughout time and space. On the way, the different incarnations of the Doctor fight different types of baddies. Hey yo! Including monsters, cyborgs, aliens, and sentient marshmallows. The Doctor is typically characterized as a being with a high intellect, able to save Earth over and over again without even having to lift a finger. So I know there's gonna be a lot of you who have never watched the show before, and so I'm gonna ask the question to those of you who have watched Doctor Who. What one episode would you recommend to a beginner of Doctor Who? I'll collate all the responses and post them in a pinned comment for people to see, and hopefully we can culture the uncultured. Unless this video gets like 0 views and I'm just like talking to myself. Anyway, as a fan of the show and also Marvel, I always thought that the Doctor would suit the Marvel universe very well, it also having a complex library of cosmic races and time travelers. However, a crossover between the two is very unlikely. That was until Disney decided to pick up the show for its streaming platform Disney+. Now even American audiences will be able to witness the peak storytelling that is Doctor Who. And that's what brings me to today's scenario. What if this crossover happened? How would the Doctor fit into the MCU? Well my friends, without further ado, let's get into the video.
Who put you in charge? And who the hell are you anyway?
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below. You got a problem with that?
Before we start, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, as I said before, time travel is an integral concept to the show of Doctor Who. The Doctor's spaceship vehicle is capable of traveling throughout space and time. Make sure you write that down. Now, time travel in the show works very much how you're used to in general sci-fi media. Don't mess around in the past because it will cause problems in the future, or well, paradoxes. A common phrase you're likely to hear in Doctor Who is a fixed point. Essentially, if you change these, the whole universe gets jumbled up. An example of this time travel is, say, if the Doctor travelled back to World War II and met Captain America. When Steve wakes up 70 years later, he's still going to remember meeting the Doctor. Now that's all great, except in the MCU, time travel works kinda differently to how everyone's probably used to. If you change an event in the past, it's not going to affect the future. Instead, a new timeline branches out with the effects you created. However, your timeline remains the same as it was. So Captain America would not remember meeting the Doctor. If you're like me, when you heard all of this in Endgame, your mind brought you straight to Dragon Ball Z. Let me give you an example that perhaps explains time travel in the MCU a bit better. Trunks comes from a post-apocalyptic future where humanity has all but been destroyed by a pair of androids. He comes to the past to warn everyone about the impending threat. A bunch of stuff happens and he travels back to his future, yet finds it unchanged. Was what he did all for naught? Not necessarily. He created a new timeline where the androids were stopped and humanity was saved. But his timeline stayed the same. This is why in Endgame, the Avengers cannot go back and kill Thanos as a baby. I feel like it's interesting that the MCU decided to go this route. In the normal comics, it works the exact same as it does for Doctor Who. This creates a bit of an issue when merging Doctor Who into the MCU. How is time travel going to work? And also, what about the TVA? Prior to Loki season 1, the timeline was apparently guarded by the TVA the entire time. Any change to the timeline was rooted out and dealt with. Apparently the Avengers were permitted to meddle around with history, but every time the Doctor steps through time, the TVA would be onto their movements. My argument against this is that the Doctor is someone who doesn't really exist on the timeline, just like the TVA. This is because they come from a race of beings called Time Lords who are very much like the TVA in that they govern over time and space. So multiple versions of the Doctor can be in the same year at the same time. An example I can give is the third Doctor, who was the Doctor during the year 1969, and he was trapped on Earth. Also in that year was the 11th Doctor, who was hanging out with Richard Nixon. The point is that the Doctor can be travelling through points following He Who Remains' death, where the TVA aren't really guarding the timeline anymore. But that remains to be seen in Loki Season 2, of course. I'm pretty sure that no one actually cares about the specifics. Time travel in general can be really confusing. So enough about this, and let's get into the fun stuff. When bringing the Doctor into the MCU, rather than just bringing the Doctor, I've decided to really just merge the two universes together. This would bring all of the unique creatures of Doctor Who also into the MCU. And I don't think this would cause any issues, as the MCU is already home to a wide array of alien races. The only immediate issue is the Time Lords. As I've discussed, they were governors of time and space, but their presence on the universe was immense, being involved in multiple time wars that even ended in their extinction. Including them could have a large effect on the cosmic side of the MCU, in that they may clash with many of Marvel's cosmic villains. They also would most likely be involved in the multiversal wars that were explained in Loki Season 1. But luckily for us, they were wiped out, so they wouldn't affect the current era of the MCU. A last note is that I'm still considering that the show has been running since the 1960s, so everything that happens in Doctor Who, excluding some minor details, is canon in the MCU, from the first Doctor to the most recent Doctor. Alright, now that everything has been hopefully explained, we can now discuss how the Doctor fits into the MCU and what effects their presence may have. Let's start with Phase 1, beginning with Iron Man. There would be no reason for the Doctor to appear in this movie. Interestingly, I think the first movie that the Doctor would directly appear in is Thor. Sorry David Tennant fans, the first Doctor of the MCU would be Matt Smith, as Thor takes place in 2011. He would also be joined by his companions of this era, Amy and Rory. So it's going to be kind of awkward when Nebula starts to pop up. Now the reason for the Doctor being in this movie is because the Doctor is usually intrigued by alien appearances on Earth, and is Earth's protector against any external threats. Thor's hammer mysteriously appearing in New Mexico, he would definitely find it curious. I think considering Asgardians are known around the universe, the Doctor would recognize that this is Mjolnir. I mean, it could be that Asgardians are ancient enemies of the Time Lords. We know of course that Odin in his past was a sort of conqueror with his daughter Hela. He may have crossed paths with the Time Lords or the Doctor himself. Also in our new Thor, we would find out that the Doctor has a long-standing relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. This would date back to the 1950s. This is when S.H.I.E.L.D. was first established, and also around the time that the first Doctor started having some adventures on Earth. It's highly likely that S.H.I.E.L.D. would know of the Doctor in some fashion. In Doctor Who, there's an organisation called UNIT, which functions very similar to S.H.I.E.L.D. UNIT are aware of the Doctor and all of his faces. They either tend to enlist his help for stuff or get in his way. I don't think they would have particularly the best of relationships, considering that the Doctor is very arrogant, especially in his Tennant era. He views humans as sort of delicate creatures and believes that he alone is the most capable of defending Earth. S.H.I.E.L.D. would most likely not view the Doctor as a threat due to his long-standing nature of protecting Earth, but he has a certain unpredictability that they should keep an eye on. However, I do think that Nick Fury would have a good relationship with the Doctor. He's more of a in-the-field type of guy, and he also has his own experiences with aliens, such as in 2019's Captain Marvel. I think the Doctor would have been here for those events, considering Skrulls were messing around on Earth, and so both Nick Fury and Carol Danvers would know of the Doctor following those events. Interestingly enough, I'm going to say that the version of the Doctor they meet is the 13th Doctor, since Captain Marvel did come out in 2019, and that means that the 11th Doctor could have no idea who Nick Fury is unless he met him before. Anyway, the events of Thor occur more or less the same, only with the 11th Doctor trying to help Thor out. He would probably go up to Asgard and try to convince Odin himself, but of course, Loki sits the throne. The movie ends with Nick Fury asking the Doctor if he's interested in the Avengers Initiative, to which the Doctor would probably laugh and then leave. However, as we all know, the next movie after this is The Avengers, and this is also the next movie for the Doctor to appear in. You see, at the beginning of the movie, S.H.I.E.L.D. are experimenting on the Tesseract, most definitely behind the Doctor's back. as he would most likely be able to figure out its true nature as an Infinity Stone. In his own canon, the Doctor has a universal knowledge of species, secrets, etc. Being now in the Marvel Universe, he would naturally have an awareness of this universe's mechanics, and so he would know of the stones and the power that they hold. You could insert him into this scene having caught on to what S.H.I.E.L.D. are doing, or Nick Fury simply bringing him in. He watches on as they experiment and could begin to get close to figuring out what the Tesseract actually is until Loki is summoned to Earth. Things go haywire and now Loki has possession of the Tesseract. In the normal canon, Thanos sends Loki to grab the Tesseract. However, with the Doctor's added presence, Thanos would be forced to act more carefully. After all, he knew of Tony Stark. It's not too far of a stretch to say that he would know of the Doctor, if not be even slightly threatened by the Doctor, considering that the Doctor has a reputation of being a dangerous figure that led all of his enemies to actually form an alliance just in order to trap him inside of an inescapable prison that he of course escaped from. Doctor has been dealing with beings arguably far more dangerous than even Thanos before he got the stones. Thanos would know that he would need to distract the Doctor in order for Loki's plan to work, and he could send someone who's very talented in clashing with the Doctor. The Master, who is essentially the Doctor's #1 antagonist, the Joker to his Batman if you will. At this point in the timeline, the Master would be going by Missy. As we hear in Series 8, she had orchestrated the meeting between Clara and the Doctor in the modern day. Loki and Missy would form a coalition in order to get the stones to Thanos. Missy would enact whatever plan she has to distract the Doctor, while Loki deals with the Avengers. Back with the Doctor, he would definitely be angry with S.H.I.E.L.D's tampering with the Infinity Stones. The Doctor is an alien, and as I said before, a somewhat arrogant one. He doesn't particularly like when humans meddle with things they don't understand. Now, S.H.I.E.L.D. would be interested in recapturing the Tesseract for themselves, whereas the Doctor would want to get it off planet. This conflict of interest means that the Doctor would go on his own solo mission to retrieve the stones and put them somewhere safely. On the other hand, Nick Fury would activate the Avengers initiative. With the Master now back on Earth, the Avengers would be more successful than the Doctor and be able to bring Loki aboard the helicarrier. Missy would back off, as Loki would soon be able to escape, where they are then able to enact the next part of their plan. I can imagine from here that the Doctor would arrive amidst, bro, how do you even say that word? Tony and Bruce's research on the scepter.
Fury! You're making it especially hard for me to like you. Where is the Tesseract?
Doctor, we've got this handled.
You don't know what you're dealing with, are you?
Seems like gamma radiation. This guy had a whole bomb of that stuff blow up in his face. I think we're pretty much experts.
No can do. Looks like S.H.I.E.L.D. won't give it up until they've used the cube to make their weapons.
Captain Steve Rogers? How is this possible?
It's good to see you again, Doctor.
You're right, Cap.
Stark would then show the monitor, revealing that S.H.I.E.L.D. are making weapons using the Tesseract. The room gets heated and Bruce asks the most important question.
I'd like to know why S.H.I.E.L.D. is using the Tesseract to build weapons of mass destruction.
And then Nick Fury would point to the Doctor.
Because of him.
Me.
1968. The Cybermen invade London. 2006. The Cybermen and the Daleks wage war with each other on Earth.
What's your point? I saved the day.
What about when you don't? Not only have we learned that we aren't alone, we've learned that we are hopelessly outmatched.
From this, the room ignites and the Avengers start picking at each other. Loki's agents attack the helicarrier, allowing Loki to escape and kill Coulson. He would then meet up with Missy in New York, where they would use the Tesseract to open up a wormhole that invites the Chitauri to invade. However, the Doctor has a lot of enemies that Thanos may be able to convince to also attack Earth when the wormhole opens. Races like the Daleks, Cybermen, Zygons or Sontarans that could all team up with the Chitauri on a joint invasion of Earth. While the Avengers defend New York, the Doctor would be convincing Nick Fury's superiors to not deploy a nuke. In fact, he argues that the operation should be left in Nick Fury's capable hands. It's not clear whether they would listen, but the Doctor has a way of winning people over. The Doctor, with his immense knowledge, would understand that destroying the Chitauri mothership would kill all of the Chitauri on Earth. However, the Doctor doesn't like to kill, but when his hand is forced, he tends to do worse.
And then we discovered why. Why this Doctor, who had fought with gods and demons, why he'd run away from us and hidden. He was being kind. He wrapped my father in unbreakable chains forged in the heart of a dwarf star. He tricked my mother into the event horizon of a collapsing galaxy, to be imprisoned there forever.
He could manipulate a conflict between the other races that had decided to invade, turning them on the Chitauri and resulting in the destruction of the mothership. Seeing that things are going haywire, Missy would betray Loki. Their partnership wouldn't have been that strong, and this is what the Master is known for best. The main reason for this betrayal is because of her interest in Loki's scepter. Missy would steal it and dip, as she has other plans to put forth. I don't think she would be particularly frightened by Thanos, and was more in this to mess with the Doctor a little. Loki would be left defenseless, and ultimately lose to the Avengers, where then the Doctor, Erik Selvig and Black Widow would close the wormhole themselves. In the aftermath, Nick Fury finally relents, allowing the Doctor to take the Tesseract. The Doctor also realizes that the Avengers are not all that bad, considering they were able to defend New York from multiple alien invasions. In the mid-credits scene, the Doctor confronts Thanos, Tesseract in hand. The Doctor warns him that if Thanos continues in his quest, he will stop him. And Thanos simply smiles. And that is it for this What If. Let me know what you guys thought of these shorter type of What Ifs, and if you'd like to see more, whether it be from this What If or other What Ifs, remember to like and subscribe, and join me for my next What If video, which is going to be what if Batman was in Game of Thrones. As always, I've been your boy Polar. Peace.